Hello. So I'm joined by Peter Large, who's the Vice President of Construction Field Solutions Group for Trimble. Thank you for joining me, Peter.
Thank you for having me, Andy. Great to meet you.
You too. So if we just kind of get right to it, you've been described as an industry veteran. I wonder if you could just give us a quick, I'm sure kind of meant in a very positive sense.
Yeah.
Could you just kind of sort of give us a quick summary maybe of some of your previous experience in the field of construction tech?
Yeah, certainly. I don't know who called me a veteran, but yeah, I suppose it's a compliment. But yeah, in fact, I've just come back into the construction industry. I spent a few years in aerospace, but construction is really my home. It's where I started. In fact, I started my career in the UK with a civil engineering contractor on a site, using as a site engineer, trainee site engineer, using the survey instruments and hammering a lot of stakes in the ground. I sometimes joke I've been trying to get rid of stakes ever since. But yeah, and also spent some time in the UK in the civil engineering consulting sector for a few years on projects in the UK and also in the UAE, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and in Africa. So that was my sort of professional background. And I got to know Trimble actually as a customer. That's how I got to know the company. And we were probably one of the first civil engineering consultancies in Europe to get into GPS, the first generation of real-time kinematic, precise real-time GPS. And it certainly transformed a lot of what we did. Huge productivity gains. Really was eye-opening for me. And I ended up at the company. So I joined Trimble the first time in '96 and worked a lot in the engineering construction business there. And worked with some real visionaries, Andy. Some of the people. I caught the tail end of Charlie Trimble, his tenure as CEO, but worked with some real visionaries who were the people who could see what we could do with the technology, and the idea of guiding machines in construction and agriculture in the very early days. And that was an amazing experience, actually. And so I was with Trimble for 18 years, and a lot of that was developing those high precision businesses in AEC, and working with our partners around the world, and our customers, and developing the business and the technology. And so it's great to be back. I have to say, it's great to be back in the industry. It's great to be back at Trimble. I've caught Trimble's only had 3 CEOs in its 43-year history, and I've been fortunate enough to serve under all 3 of them. And Rob Painter's our new CEO. Has got a new vision, a lot of energy, and we have a vision for the industry that we really believe in, and that we're working hard to deliver.
So when did you return, Pete?
Just at the end of the year, basically, at the end of last year, December 7th. So pretty much a few 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's really interesting. But if we could just touch on a little bit about, so I believe your role is overseeing Trimble's Construction Field Solutions Group. I just wonder if you could explain to us a little bit about what that entails, and I'm sure every day is different, but maybe some of the day-to-day tasks that you do.
Yes. Well, so I spend a lot of time on video calls like this, Andy. I'm sure that's true for a lot of us. So that's been a lot of my day-to-day. But yeah, the CFS, the Construction Field Solutions group in Trimble, there's a sector which is a collection of divisions. So I have six divisions and 2 joint ventures. And those divisions span both civil engineering, so the civil construction field solutions, that's the machine control business, the civil construction software, and also some of those businesses are on the building construction side, building construction field solutions. And then the JVs, one is with Caterpillar, that's Caterpillar Trimble Control Technologies where we have a joint venture, and then one is with Hilti, which is more on the building side. So it's quite a portfolio, but the common theme there is that our customers are typically contractors, right? So it starts and ends with the customer. I used to be a Trimble customer, so I have some passion for that. But our customers are typically contractors in my group of businesses, both on the civil and building side. And what we tend to be more site and field focused in our technologies. So what we put on the machine and what we use in the building construction world to bring a BIM model, constructible BIM model to the site. Same in civil, right? Bringing that constructible model to the machine and back. That's tends to be our common theme. But yeah, and I'm fortunate. I have a group of very competent general managers that run those businesses and JVs. So a lot of my job, and we at Trimble we talk about strategy, people, and execution, right? So that's really a lot of what I work on, the strategic part. Also making sure we're creating good synergies across our businesses and across our sectors to do great things for our customers. Working on the people side. The professional development and creating opportunities. We have a big push right now on diversity, equity, inclusion. It's an important topic for us, and we're committed to improving our diversity and creating a good environment for the people who work for us in terms of inclusion.
Okay.
And then the execution part is making sure we're working on the right things, right? And also that we're investing in the right areas and how we allocate resources. That's the flavor of the job, if you like.
Okay, thanks, Pete. And then I'd be curious to know, obviously, I think you said you first joined in 96, and before that, obviously, you've been in construction anyway. So you've seen kind of a lot of change in construction and specifically in kind of construction tech. Quite a kind of broad question, but I kind of wonder from your point of view, where do you think construction is at the moment on the tech journey, and kind of how far along are we?
Yeah, well, good question, right? So, I mean, it depends, I would say. So, if I reflect on my early experiences more than 30 years ago in construction, I would argue we've come a long way, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at the adoption of technology. And the use of digital technologies, machine controls, certainly in sectors of the market and certain geographies, we've come a long way. But I also think we have a long way to go, right? I think we have a lot of opportunity. That's true globally because the level of technology adoption varies a lot around the world. But it's also true in segments of the market, right? I think you'll find a lot of technology on big projects today, medium size, but I think there's still the smaller jobs and the smaller machines and certain sectors of the market where there's still opportunity. And then the other dimension to that, Andy, is that we've come a long way in certain areas, right? We've done a lot, I think, on machine control, even though there's still a lot of unpenetrated opportunities there. But I think there's opportunity also in how we manage the work process, right? How we manage project delivery, how we orchestrate the job. You can build something with quality, safely, but also you could build to the same quality and safely at lower cost and faster, and that's of course where a lot of the focus is. But I think we've still got a lot of opportunity there. I think we're much earlier in that journey relative to other industries, right? If you look at other industries that have really transformed more fully. Using technology, I think comparatively we still have a way to go. So it really does depend, I would say. I think we have come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, and in terms of kind of coming a long way, I wonder if part of that journey's maybe happened in the last year, and kind of just to get your view on kind of COVID has maybe kind of been a forced accelerator for tech.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's no different. And some of that is things you could do anyway, but people weren't, right? And it's a little bit like what we're doing now, and using these video tools, right? I've been doing a lot of that. Those are things we had at our disposal, but we weren't necessarily using them. But then COVID was the forcing function that made us use it, and now we got used to it. And we've definitely seen some of that with our customers and our technology. So I mean, the ability to do things remotely, right? So we've seen a lot more. Connected sites, connected machines, and some of that is just the necessity of keeping physical distancing as much as possible, right? Why take a model to a machine on a USB stick when you can just send it? But part of that is also remote support, remote training, just situational awareness, right? You can sit at home and get a sense of what's going on a job, right? Not everybody needs to be there, right? And so we've certainly seen a big uptick in that regard, Andy, and I think it'll stay. It's a little bit like these tools we're using right now, right? I'd like to do a little bit less of it and be back in the office, but I know that I'm going to be using these tools in ways I didn't before, and I think that's the same for our technologies and our customers.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of understanding that, as you said before, it's obviously different in different sectors, and I know there's different geographical parts of the world that maybe they're a little bit further along with tech than others. But again, as a kind of general thing, what are some of the things that are kind of holding back the adoption of tech? And is one of those things the fact that sometimes the data from different companies doesn't always speak to each other?
Yeah, well, so I mean, two questions there, really, right? So one is, I think the rate of adoption of technology is accelerating. In fact, I know it is, right? Because we have data, so that's a good thing. But there still are some barriers. I mean, historically, the barriers were things like getting rid of paper, which was surprisingly difficult, right? And getting a true digital data flow has been historically has been a hurdle, right? Now I think we've made a lot of progress, but that's still an issue in some segments and some geographies. But some of it is also change, right? Just adopting technology does change the way you work. We see that in a positive way, right? We like to talk about transforming the way the world works, but there's still some resistance to change, and there certainly are some outdated practices out there. But I think increasingly, as more of the industry adopts technology, I think it drives the rest of the industry to adopt, right? Because you get a competitive advantage. I think the asset owners and the people paying for the projects are increasingly becoming aware of the benefits of technology and are becoming more influential in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's still there's still opportunity there, right? But I think that I think the barriers gradually are coming down, actually, Andy, and I think the rate of adoption is increasing. Certainly in some markets, these technologies are becoming more mainstream, sort of early majority in the adopter curve. On your other question about is interoperability between different solutions, I don't think that's a barrier to adoption, Andy, so much as a consequence of adoption. In other words, as more people are adopting these technologies, these kinds of issues have emerged from that, right? And it's an issue that I think the industry in general understands that we need to tackle, right? So we certainly, from a Trimble perspective, we're engaged in standards work, really with the AEM, the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, being a focal point for that, facilitating that between the different machine manufacturers and the different providers of technology such as ourselves. But there is a standards effort there in recognition that this has become an issue. But I don't see that so much as a barrier to adoption, as I say, as much as a consequence of adoption that's taken place. I think this is an issue that has emerged out of that. That makes sense?
No, it does. It does. I mean, I suppose in a way it could be both, couldn't it? It could be a consequence, and also for some people, it could be a barrier. But talking. Yeah. So, but sort of talking then, kind of, I guess slightly linked, but kind of moving on slightly. I kind of wonder. To me, it seems like the model of construction tech might be moving towards more of a subscription-based one. Would you say that that's fair?
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I think that that's a mega trend, right? That's not just our industry. This is happening in a lot of industries. I love my iPhone, but I would say this is a subscription business, really, the way I get it, right? I get the hardware, the software, the data service as a monthly fee, and when I want a new one, I get a new one, right? That's but it certainly, and on the software side, it has been a big trend. So I think so, yeah. And it's becoming a customer expectation, actually. So we've certainly, in our business, we've launched something called Trimble Platform as a Service that we call TPaaS, which is hardware, software, and value-added services, not so different to the kind of iPhone model where, lower cost of entry because you're signing up for a subscription, not a big capital purchase. But technology assurance, when a new thing comes out, you get the new one, same as a phone, and a whole bunch of things around that, right? Damage protection and sort of support and white glove service and all those things. So we are definitely, from our point of view, adapting to that trend and that customer almost an expectation these days that that's a way to access technology, and it creates predictability as well, right? That in terms of expense and less sort of lumpy capital expenditures.
Yeah,
I think it's a win-win, I think, in that regard.
Okay. So obviously, don't want you to get into any trouble, Pete. But I wonder if there's anything you can share with us that kind of Trimble might be kind of working on for the future, whether that's specific or not, or whether that's maybe just kind of general trends that you guys are looking at the moment.
Yeah, no, well, absolutely. I mean, we have to be a little bit careful, publicly traded. But in general terms, I'd say a big focus for us right now is what we call our Connect and Scale 2025 strategy. That's our new CEO's vision, and it's all about connecting a lot of things we have together and scaling. Some of that is reinvestment in our own business, but a lot of it is reinvestment in technologies that we believe will help our customers. The majority of it is. And that's all about, Trimble has, you take the construction industry, we have a lot of solutions that serve different stakeholders in the industry across the entire process, across the entire workflow. And we have done work to connect that together, but there's a lot more we can do, right? So a big part of our focus is that connected construction across the whole continuum, across the whole work process, round tripping data, right? So if I, as an example of that, if I can get better information on my job about how I'm doing against my plan and my bid, that gives me better situational awareness. I don't want to know after the fact, right? I want to know on a day-to-day basis. Maybe I want to get ahead of the game and see where things may go off track. But also I can learn from that, right? I can get better at bidding and estimating if I can learn from that data, and that feeds back. So those kinds of feedback loops, that's a big part of what we're working on. That's a big part of our vision for the industry. And we have a lot of pieces across the whole workflow, across different stakeholders, and we see a lot of opportunities to stitch that together. So that's a big part of what we're working on. And then we are working on autonomy. We've talked about that. We've demonstrated in the past some autonomous equipment, so autonomy, robotics. We're doing some work with Boston Dynamics on Spot the Dog. You may have seen some of that. That's we're learning some very interesting things there, and but in autonomy and robotics generally, and increased automation, right? I mean, the way we look at that is everything we've been doing on machines is automating a task that would have been manually performed in the past, right? So there's a natural evolution of that, right? I think in some cases that will become fully autonomous, and we're certainly investing in that area.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this must just be. It just seems to me that this is such a massive opportunity because we kind of talked about, construction has increasingly adopted tech, but it's still, quite a long way to go for kind of a lot of the industry. And if you think of the potential productivity and efficiency gains, which this tech could kind of bring about, that I don't know, it just seemed like there's still a big opportunity for the industry. And it'd be interesting if we were to speak in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, something like that, kind of how even further we might be along on this journey.
Yeah, I mean, yes, for sure, right. And I think the rate of change is accelerating, right. So I think we'll see a lot of change in that time period, actually. And there's a lot of drivers there, right. I think we're all getting a lot more interested in how things as performed as well as built, right. How we actually go about building effectively. But also, I think there's a squeeze on the labor market, right? A lot of our customers around the world have real challenges there, and I think that creates a demand for more automation, more autonomy, and just more efficiency, just doing things with less waste, less rework in a much more efficient way, because we have to make the best use of what we have, right? So I think there's a lot of drivers there. I also think we're going to see a lot of investment in infrastructure. I mean, the US bill has got a lot of attention. That's a massive proposal. We'll see but it's not just the US, right? We're seeing that in other parts of the world. I mean, historically, infrastructure investment has good economic payoffs, short-term and long-term, to stimulate the economy, and we're seeing tax incentives. And I think there's going to be a lot of investment, but I think those investments, there'll be a drive to use those wisely, right, and to be efficient and effective. So I think there'll be quite a pickup in the rate of technology adoption.
Okay, great.
I have to set a date a few years from now. We can see what.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe 2 or 3 years time from now, and see where we are. Well, as you said, I mean, if you've got a £100 billion project, then an efficiency of 2 or 3% all of a sudden equates to quite a lot of cash, doesn't it?
Makes a huge difference, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
I think it's also risk reduction there as well, right?
Okay, great. Well, I think you've kind of touched on it a little bit there, but I kind of just wonder, just to kind of wrap up, whether there's any kind of specific kind of goals that kind of Trimble might have for 2021 or beyond.
Yeah, so, well, right, I mean, our big focus this year is trying to get back to normal, right? And for us and our customers, I think we're all looking forward to that. But at the same time, making better use of what we have, right? That's kind of the customer success concept of, now we've used some of these technologies we didn't before. Let's get more out of that, right? But yeah, and then Trimble Platform as a Service, TPaaS, that's a big initiative for us this year. We're getting that established, getting some good customer experience, good customer feedback with that. And I think we'll do things on connected construction and expanding, right? We're always looking to expand our customer base as well, right? And so getting into new areas geographically, new machines, that kind of thing. And then the thing we're already working on is Trimble Dimensions user conference. I know you've been to that in the past.
I have, yeah.
And we've announced that we're going to do one next year, November 2022 in Las Vegas. So we're already working on that, planning on that. We got a new boot camp site with the local Society of Operating Engineers. It's a brand new facility. It's perfect for us. So we're very excited about that. Can't wait personally. I'm really looking forward to that. And let me invite you now, Andy. You're ready.
Yeah, well,
come and join us.
A, I went before and it was good. Kind of B, it's in Las Vegas, and C, I think you could invite me down the road at the moment, and I'd be kind of desperate to go. I've not having not left my house for so long. So yeah, that sounds good to me, Pete.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And it's actually it's a really nice thing for our team to be working on as well, because it's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's something to look forward to, and we're gonna we'll have the opportunity for virtual participation, right? But it's going to be an in-person event, and that's something that we're really looking forward to. So that hopefully gives you a flavor of some of the things we're working on right now.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, yes, Pete, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.